well, to take
Wait.
3 million out of
We're live. You know, sometimes we get involved in these conversations before the show begins, and it's so active, it's so stimulating that you hardly can't start. That's Elise Anderson. She's the senior legislative aide to Senator Sam Slom, who some people call the Lone Ranger. I think he calls himself the Lone Ranger.
He does. So today I'm Tonto.
Today she's Tonto. Funny, you don't look like Tonto. Anyway, this is Community Matters, and I guess the title of our show is The Lone Ranger Sends Tonto, which is Elise Anderson. Elise is actually the sister of our original staffer here at Think Tech about 200 years ago, Andrew Anderson, who we still talk to, who is in Singapore right now.
Yes.
Anyways, so being the senior legislative aide to Senator Sam Slom is just an incredible position, because you can see from where you are what's happening in the legislature. It's sort of an exquisite opportunity, isn't it?
It really is. Everything comes through that office. I mean, Senator Slom's on every single committee, being the only Republican in the Senate. He's the only one-person minority party in any House or Senate in the United States. So we're in a very unique position, and every committee goes through his office. So the thing is, oftentimes he'll have 4 committees going on at the same time, 4 hearings, and obviously he's one guy and he can't teleport. So
why not? You got to show him
I
how
don't know.
to do
Yeah,
that.
he's behind the times in that matter. We'll get there one day. But because he's on every committee and they always overlap, each of the staff are assigned about 2 committees. So our job is kind of to be there and to be his eyes and ears when he can't be there. And he tries to be in as many hearings as possible. So he'll make a vote in one committee and then dash downstairs to another, and he does as much as possible. And sometimes the Democrats have to wait for him because, they need quorum.
Right,
so
right.
Yeah.
It's like when you go to court, and you say to the judge, "Look, Judge, I got to go because I got another hearing in the court next door." And the judge says, "No, you don't. You stay right there."
Yep.
He's in demand, being stretched like the rack.
Unfortunately, he's in demand right now, and some double joint hearings with Ways and Means and Judiciary, and a triple joint hearing about debris being collected in one place and deposited in another place. So he has some controversial bills that have weighed him down at the Capitol, so he was unable to be here today. But
well, tell him we understand completely. We would expect nothing less. That he's got to attend to those priorities. You want him to be engaged in the legislation, especially because he's the Lone Ranger.
Yeah, he made it very clear that his priorities are there in the big square building.
Tell him thanks anyway. Tell him thanks, we understand. Okay?
Will do.
All right, so thanks for coming down in his stead. And I wanted to get a handle first on, what it's like for you as a senior legislative aide. It must be very interesting, especially in this office with him. But what's your day like? How do you contribute to the effort?
Well, the title senior legislative aide is more of a formality. So basically, me and all the other legislative aides and the interns and the chief of staff and the office manager, all our responsibilities are somewhat similar in that we have to, know what's going on in 4 places at once. And my 2 committees, so the legislative aides and the researchers downstairs, so we have a Senate Minority Office, which is basically all devoted to Sam.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, the Senate Majority
the whole
Office
is at beck and
yeah,
call.
it's a whole research office. So there are about 6 staff members down there, and then the Senate Majority Research has, about 20, 30 staff members dedicated to research bills for the Democrats, but they also follow committees, mostly the morning committees. So my 2 committees that I'm assigned to are the Higher Education and the Arts Committee and the Tourism Committee. But I've been tracking a lot of the health bills because our health committee got vastly restructured this year. That was a big change, I think, of the legislature in general.
Josh Green no longer the chair.
Yeah, Josh Green's no longer on the committee, and he's the only doctor in the state legislature.
It seems like the right thing, does it?
I don't know what I'm allowed to opine on
well,
public
you better
television.
not opine on anything you don't think you should opine on.
But the all health issues now were fused on to Roz Baker's Committee, Commerce and Consumer Protection. So I find it kind of difficult to see a nexus between mortgages and healthcare crises. Then that's, and the fact that it all kind of goes under the same umbrella is kind of, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a
Well,
little
how does that work? You
problematic, I
can't be a
think.
specialist, you know?
Yeah,
It's like right now, there are hearings going on over my favorite issue, encryption versus privacy in the House, and the House Committee on Technology, I guess, is involved. And all these guys are down there. And what's clear going forward, and Tad Allen was talking on, I guess it was CNBC this morning, he's a retired commandant of the Coast Guard. I know him. Talking about how, you know, when you have an expert issue, you have to put the experts together. You can't include everybody on that. You have to select your people so you get the right mix of expertise.
Yeah.
And that's what we need on these committees, don't you
I
think?
agree. I was honestly quite disturbed by the fact that the only doctor on the Senate was thrown off the Health Committee. It's one thing to demote him and make him not the chair if he has political disagreements with people, but to throw him off the committee when he's really the only person with any healthcare knowledge to speak of was...
And I can tell you, he is an expert for sure. He
he's
has
a
a show
surgeon
with
in
us
ER.
today, on Tuesdays, called Healthcare in Hawaii.
Well, so healthcare issues have been something that have been interesting to me. Last year, that was one of my committees to monitor, was the Health Committee, but now it's Commerce and Consumer Protection, so the scheduling is different. And they do tend to cluster the health issues together on certain hearings and the timeshare issues on other hearings, but still the fact that, that expert panel concept is missing, I think.
Yeah, maybe they ought to have more committees which are more expert in those areas, because those legislators can then, really drill down and become experts and do sophisticated legislation.
Yeah, maybe tone down the number of committees, because a lot of them are kind of overlapping in irrelevant topics. For instance, Senator Slom's the vice chair of Economic Development, Environment, and Technology. And I don't really see that environment's a terribly relevant topic to economic development and technology. So maybe to decrease the number of committees and just, so each legislator can focus a little more. I know Senator Slom's the exception because they all have to be bipartisan committees, but...
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting. It reminds me, as it always does, this kind of thing, this mix and match thing, about CITAR. That's the College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources. Now you go figure. And it really has both. I mean, it has tropical agriculture and all the research that goes on in agriculture. I mean, a lot of that is historic, though.
And human resources?
And human resources, what? I think back when, probably in the latter part of the 19th century, we had, plantations which had a lot of labor, and this was to deal with the labor. But then the advent of unions and the failing of the plantations, all that changed. And now we have tropical agriculture, which is really, I'm not sure it's the right place for it. Maybe it should be alone anyway.
Yeah.
And then human resources, well, gee whiz, what's that about?
Every part of the UH is about human resources. If you see the number of cubicles in the back offices. Yeah.
True. Or about computers, Everybody there is in computers. And some of them just take the bull by the horns and they do very sophisticated computer processing with, big data. Everybody has big data. So.
Well, yesterday we had the broadband technology bill going through, where certain people feel like they haven't been getting what they've been paying for as far as their data width. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
what happened?
I'm honestly not sure.
Okay, well, yeah, that's a problem.
I think it's ongoing. It's an ongoing dispute right now.
Yeah. So it didn't fall off or anything. It's still there. It's still.
I believe so.
As far as we know. Yeah. Following bills is no easy matter. I sit on the Energy Policy Forum, and the number of bills those guys they have to follow. It's huge. It's a spreadsheet like the one you brought with you, page after page after
and
page.
It's easy to let bills go through the cracks. One bill that was especially controversial that came up about 3 weeks ago or so was suggesting to sell a piece of land. You might have heard of it. It's called Moanalua Gardens, and to sell it against the owner's will. And the owner hadn't heard that bill came through. But I happened to be reading a list of bills and saw that, and the owner's a family friend of mine, and so I thought, he's never suggested selling the gardens. So I called him up and said, wow, you want to sell the gardens? He says, no, what's this about? So had
Oh,
he not submitted opposition testimony, nobody representing his side was at the hearing, and he tends to be a little bit anti-legislature, anti-public official. So he didn't show up. No one supporting him did. There were about a dozen, maybe 20 people who showed up in opposition. About 30 testimonies or so, and 20 people showed up in
what he should do with
opposition of
his
him.
land.
Yeah, well, they were trying to collect $7 million from the taxpayers to buy his land, to essentially condemn his land. But they had no justification. There were some political reasons that we all found out later. But the thing was that had he not submitted that opposition testimony, it would have gone through, because the chair of the Water Land Committee, who's a very diligent man, Mike Gabbard, he had no reason to believe that the owner was in opposition to this. So he's weeding through the testimonies and then comes upon the owner's opposition and says,
What?
What? Opposition? And so this is the
very
kind
guy
of
who
thing.
owns the land.
Yeah, so had it not been just a random chance that I happened to be weeding through that committee hearing that morning, because it was last minute testimony, he submitted about 15 minutes before the hearing started, then, the public would have possibly paid $7 million to buy land
And essentially condemn it for questionable or non-reason.
non-reason, political reasons among private warring parties.
It strikes me that when the government condemns land, Hawaii doesn't condemn land easily. In other words, in most places you have the Attorney General as the advice of some department. They want to condemn land. They don't need a bill for that. They don't need legislation for that. This is like one issue, I'm wondering what you think of it, is that the legislature, with all its, 2,800 bills or more, 3,000 bills, whatever. Easily, has all these bills come in from left field, and legislators just, introduce them at random, willy-nilly sometimes.
And if the bill says by request, so oftentimes the Senate president or a main chair will introduce a bill that says by request, and that basically disavows responsibility from the introducer.
Yeah.
So you don't really know who's behind this bill.
Yeah.
Until you read the testimony, sometimes it becomes apparent, sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, so it could be like one of those super PACs. You don't know where it comes from.
Yeah.
The public can't find out where it comes from.
Yeah.
And it could be really bizarre and strange and politically motivated, and gee whiz, we gotta know where it comes from. What do you think?
Well, in the case of this recent condemnation bill, it was very clear where it came from, but I would probably get in trouble saying it on TV.
Don't. No need. I don't want to take you there.
No, I won't go there.
You're only Tonto.
Everyone knows who knows what they're involved in, so leave it at that.
Okay, we're going to leave it at that. We're going to take a short break. That's Elise Anderson. She's the senior legislative aide to Senator Sam Slom, who's in committee hearings this morning. And we'll be right back with more.
Aloha, I'm Keli'i Akina with the Grassroot Institute of Hawaii, and one of our delights is to be partnered with Think Tech Hawaii and produce programs every week. Every Monday at 2 o'clock, we have a show called E Hana Kako, which means let's work together. So we bring people from all across the nation and the country, and certainly throughout the islands, together here to talk with them about how to work together, and how to work together to do the following: to build a better economy, a better government, a better society. So if you're interested in the research of our think tank, the Grassroot Institute, or if you're interested in how that's applied at the governmental and community and business levels, you'll enjoy the fascinating conversations with our guests on E Hana Kako every week on Think Tech Hawaii at 2 o'clock on Mondays. Until our next show, I'll see you. Aloha.
Bingo, we're back in this exciting conversation with Elise Anderson, senior legislative aide to Senator Sam Slom, who is the Lone Ranger Republican, and she is Tonto.
Adjective and noun both.
Thank you. Okay, so, I think the point I wanted to make is that we have a lot of bills which really shouldn't be bills. Not only because they're cockamamie, that's a good reason for them not to be bills, or off the wall, and doesn't, help anybody, but also bills where the matter should be left to the departments or
to the individuals.
It's really sort of messing in.
Yeah.
For example, there was a bill, I think it was last session, say that the next air deal should be blocked.
Yeah.
What? Isn't that the PUC's decision? Don't we have a PUC for a reason?
Yeah.
What you do when you put a bill like that in is you disempower the agency.
Yeah.
And you demoralize the agency. I'm sure there's a
Yeah.
lot of examples.
What
of that
I've
kind of-
heard on that subject, and that's our Chief of Staff, Kathy Higa's subject, really, the NextEra-HECO merger. But NextEra is doing great, and we'd be lucky to have them. And there, some people are speculating as to why NextEra would want to get involved with HECO, which is, rife with
Or Hawaii.
incompetency. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I actually found a poll of Hawaii Kai residents, which is Senator Slom's district, and this poll was taken by Representative Jean Ward. Give credit where credit's due. So 91% of Hawaii Kai residents supposedly oppose the HECO NextEra merger. I mean, it's kind of the agency's responsibility, though, I suppose, and they're,
Yeah, well, I think it's not a matter of public opinion. I mean, I have opined a couple of times in the past week on encryption versus freedom or privacy. And I feel, I'll tell you, I've said before in my commentaries that I think it's important that we have encryption, but we have to have cooperation from Apple, and Apple should be required to cooperate. Legal court order was constitutional. It was fully authorized by statute, so that means you comply with it. If you don't comply with it, you're in contempt.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, including a guy named Fertig, who was on the tube this morning, he runs I think it's called Reputation.com. Guy was really saying the same thing. Problem is that now it's all a big quote conversation end quote, and we get further and further away from actually making a decision. Some of the commentators are saying it's going to take years to decide this. We don't have years.
Yeah,
we have to
no.
know who was on that phone, who
Yeah.
those terrorists were.
Why is Apple so adamantly opposed
They want to
to?
improve their market share. It's that simple. That's what Fertig said too. That's what Bill Gates said. That's what Eileen Feinstein said.
Wow.
And I don't want to, go too heavy on this, but that's what Donald Trump said.
Well, it is
He's
Super
a
Tuesday. He's a different kind of Republican. It's funny because some say he's far right, some say he's far left. Nobody really knows. Frankly, I personally don't know what to expect of him, but I don't think he's taking himself seriously. I think he's having a great time on the campaign trail, and he's kind of a loose cannon as far as.
Well, before we get off that, I want to tell you
Okay,
about an
sorry.
interview I noticed on Donald Trump. Some really Akamai interviewer was interviewing him 2 weeks ago and said, you've been making some outrageous statements. Are you going to continue to make these kinds of statements and these insults and as we get closer to the election? I mean, suppose it looks like you're actually, going to win something here. Do you think you're going to continue to do that? He said, no. I will go mellow as we go further. And I'm taking it out of context, but that's pretty much what he said. And
What's mellow in the context of Donald Trump? We have no precedent to gauge that by.
Yeah, but is he going to repeat that kind of thing? Is he going to do that if he gets to be president? I think what he said was, "I will change. I will change."
Does he even
This
want
is
to be
for
president,
the
though?
campaign. This is for the election.
Yeah.
And I think that happens whether the candidate admits it or not. As you get closer to the real deal, the brass ring, you modify yourself.
Yeah.
So if you think he's really going to do some of the things he's saying he's going to do, I'm not so
Build a
sure
big
he's
wall
gonna
and
do
make
it.
Mexico pay for it.
When he takes a hard look at it, he might not do that at all. He's just trying to win.
Yeah, no, and he has a great face. When he drops his face and looks, makes a nice face in the camera, maybe that's what's winning his voters. Maybe his various questionable endorsements. Maybe people just want scandal. I don't know. I guess we shouldn't comment too much on some of those because they're way off left field.
Well, but it goes back to, hearings. It goes back to the quality of legislation. It goes back to how the government operates.
At the local and the federal level. And reflect
credibility.
each other. Yeah.
Credibility. I mean, one piece that comes out of all of this is that the legislature, for all the cockamamie bills and sometimes makes, mistakes about public opinion, that we have a sort of a crisis of confidence, I would say, not only in the state legislature, if you look at it, but in the federal government as well, even more in the federal government. And you talked about the Gene Ward 91% survey on who, and these guys don't like NextEra.
Yeah.
That's like if you took a survey on Apple versus the FBI, 91% of the people, I think, would say, oh yeah, apple's the best.
Because
we like our
we all-
apple farm.
Yeah, exactly.
But that doesn't rule the day. What rules the day is deliberative, thoughtful legislation and laws that you stick to.
Yeah, that's the thing about Senator Slom that other Republicans and also some Democrats can't say, is that he's very, very predictable. He's been voting the same way for 20 years. He's been proposing the same kind of legislation. For instance, there's this, the initiative bill and the term limits bill have gotten some traction. Russell Ruderman and Laura Thielen, also in the Senate, introduced those two bills that got hearings, and Senator Slom's been introducing those bills for 20 years now.
Is that right?
Yeah, and he's
They
never
were
gotten-
here only last week.
Oh yeah?
Laura Thielen and Russell Ruderman.
Yeah.
And that sounded pretty good to me, what they were saying.
Yeah, but see, Senator Slom's been introducing that for 20 years.
So that means he's behind it now, too.
He is behind it now, yeah. He's also been introducing referendum and recall bills, and Hawaii's the only state in the nation that doesn't have one of those four categories: initiative, referendum, recall, or term limits.
So how do you feel about it?
I think it's a great idea. Get
Tell
the
them,
citizens
tell
more
them.
involved. Where's
Tell
the
the
camera?
people, those are the kids drinking in the bar at 5 o'clock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
see
You wanna
that?
you
Yeah.
wanna propose some legislation instead?
Tell them why they should support it.
Why you should support which one?
Initiative,
Initiative?
term
You wanna-
limits, referendum, recall, all
Well,
that.
term limits are self-explanatory. All the term limit bills right now involve 12-year term maximum. So that's 6 for the House, 3 for the Senate. So you actually, I heard some good rationale behind that, is that the seniority is what determines the power structure in the Senate and the House, and it's consecutive seniority. So the best thing about term limits is if they had to leave after 12 years, that doesn't give them enough time to build up 25 years of seniority. And that's how, and the Speaker of the House has more power than about, 30 other House members combined. Same thing with like the Judiciary Chair in either chamber. Those guys have, the power of easily 5 legislators in one. So, so breaking up that seniority transition trajectory could really change the structure.
How would it change the structure?
Level it out. It would make it more
How
horizontal.
make it more democratic, make it more accessible
Yeah,
to
more
the public?
accessible to the public, also less concentrated in one person most likely, because, as soon as they get up there, they're out the door for term limits.
Do you
So-
lose something when you lose long-term senior leadership? Don't we need leadership? Don't we need people to say, come on, follow me, boys?
I think we do need senior leadership, people who have been in the community for a long time, who have developed a reputation for trustworthiness and excellence and competence and reliability, but we don't necessarily need career politicians. I personally am not a fan of very young politicians. People ask me, would you ever consider running for office? Because I've been working in the legislature for several years now. I said, no time soon. Maybe when I'm 65, 70 years old, maybe I
Real
would.
wisdom.
Yeah, no, because by then
Thank
you're
you for
not.
that.
By then you're not trying to make a career for yourself. You're already established. People know what to expect of you, and you're not trying to make money. Hopefully, by the time I'm 65 years old, I'll already have some money, and I'm not trying to I will not by then be trying to make a name for myself. Not really now either, but that's another story. But yeah, I think that it would be a great thing to have senior people in the legislature, but you become senior by your involvement in the community and in a career, and maybe in school,
Very
getting
interesting.
degrees or whatnot.
And
learning
those
things.
guys should be the leaders by virtue of their seniority in the
community,
community, in
yeah.
the society.
Yeah.
So what do you say to the millennials? I mean, they're knocking at the door. Some of them, not a lot, but some of them.
Tell them to vote. No need to put your own name on the ballot. Just, get behind someone. And it's kind of encouraging. I think Bernie Sanders, however you may or may not agree with his political position, and our office at the Capitol is not a big, well, actually, I do have one coworker who's a staff member for Senator Slom, another legislative aide, who is a very strong Bernie Sanders supporter. So our office represents all sides of the political
That's great.
spectrum.
Well, yeah, Sam
But-
Slom is like that. He's
Yeah.
open-minded, really.
He is,
He
yeah.
may be a Republican in name, but he's got a lot of views on a lot of issues, and they're all across the board.
Yeah, what I was getting at with Bernie Sanders is just how the millennials have started rallying behind him. I know people, my friends and classmates at the University of Hawaii, I just finished the pre-med requirements there. A lot of them have never been involved in politics, and they like Bernie Sanders for many reasons, and so now they're involved. And, that's great. Even if, I'm not a fan of socialism, but, that's for the people to decide, and they're not all the people, but, you know, it's good for everyone to be involved and to know what's going on.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Critical.
I mean, not that Hawaii is going to determine the national election, but it's interesting to find that people, you know, put aside that moniker of socialist, and he calls himself now a democratic socialist rather than a socialist. That's to separate him from, you know, real socialism that we saw in the 30s and all that. But you know, I think he's got a certain appeal, and one thing about him, and Charlie Rose made this clear, is that Bernie has joy. Bernie is happy doing what he does. The people around Bernie are happy to see him succeed.
Can't say that about Hillary.
You can't say that about her. In fact, what they came to on this Charlie Rose show was she is joyless.
That's too bad, but I can see their argument.
Yeah, really. Well, you know, at the end of the day, the President of the United States is in a funny way increasingly the President of the world, or should be the President of the world.
Yeah.
You know, we can't turn our backs on all the issues that are going on out there, and we have to be part of it, and we have to, you know, that's part of the job is why I see it, and a big part of the job.
Yeah, it's so exciting that tomorrow at this time we're going to have a very much clearer opinion than we do now on where that's going.
Yeah, even now at this moment, the polls opened in most of those places already, and voting is probably brisk.
Yeah, and things have been turning around a lot, especially in the Republican side recently, with Marco Rubio surging ahead a little bit, Trump dropping a little bit, not necessarily behind. Cruz, if Cruz doesn't do well in Texas, he might be.
They say that would be the end of him.
And then that could vastly shift things. And I don't know about Carson and Kasich if they're willing to drop out, because you'd think that they already would have considered it. You know, Jeb Bush did, the other few did, even though they were right up there. So perhaps their personalities are just to hold on until
Yeah,
the
maybe
bitter
so.
end.
Yeah. Well, Kasich has been pretty steady.
Yeah, he's apparently, his big platform's anti-drug. So, and he's also a very strong Christian. So.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't know much about Kasich because he's basically the guy who doesn't fight, but that's what I've gathered from him. That he's had his parents, I think, were killed in a drunk driving accident, so he's
carries that with him.
anti-drugs. Yeah.
Okay, we're taking another break,
Okay.
and we'll try to get back on the topic after a while.
Okay.
That's Elise Anderson, Senior Legislative Aide to Senator Sam Slom, and having a wonderful time as a staffer in the legislature.
Yes.
And through your eyes, we get to learn so much. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Donna Blanchard. I'm the host of Center Stage here on Think Tech. This show is so very dear to my heart. We talk with artists of various different ilk here about the process that they go through for their art. So we talk about what they're doing, why they're doing it, how they do it. And it's a show that is inspiring. This is what I hear from people all the time. And a show that will teach you something, sometimes something about yourself. I hope you'll join us. The show is Center Stage. It's on Think Tech every Wednesday at 2 o'clock. We'll see you then.
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I'm a senator from the Big Island and ER physician. Every other Tuesday, I get to host a show here on the Think Tech program about healthcare. We call it Healthcare in Hawaii. It's really enjoyable for me to bring other healthcare leaders from around the state to talk about our pressing issues. Hawaii has long been the health state, but we need to keep up the momentum, the inertia, and with your help and with your participation, we can come and share all of the big issues that are pressing day to day. Thanks for joining us every Tuesday, alternating weeks from 2 to 2:45.
Flucker, and I am the host of Business in Hawaii. Business in Hawaii is a show where we invite guests to come on and explain the secrets of their success for having a successful business in Hawaii. Contrary to popular belief, having a successful business in Hawaii is possible, and there are many examples of that. So please tune in on Thursdays at 2 o'clock, and you can catch us live on livestream.com for our Business in Hawaii show. You can also get the archives on hawaiitechhawaii.com, and we're also on YouTube and also on Oleo and OC16 occasionally. So please join us, find out the secrets of success, how to have a successful business, and I hope to see you on Thursdays.
We're back. We're live with Elise Anderson, and we want to get back on topic, which is the Lone Ranger sends Tonto. And Tonto has a spreadsheet of bills and a list of issues that are pending in the ledge and in the Republican side, the small Republican side, and which she's been following and researching. So why don't you mention some of them?
Okay, so on our side, we've been actually very surprised by the amount of support that our relatively conservative bills have gotten from Democrats. For instance, the fiscal impact statement bills, which would require the Department of Taxation and I should be more precise about that, but anyway, it would require a follow-up and predictions as to what the impacts are going to be. That is still alive.
The economic impact.
Yeah, the economic impacts. Yeah, so that's still alive, and it's waiting for a hearing in Ways and Means, but it passed through its first committee. We have a Silver Alert bill that's still alive that alerts, it alerts a central system when senior citizens have gone missing. We've gotten just so many signatures unexpectedly. I was taking a bill around to audit the UH, and we got a dozen signatures from Democrats on that. Most surprisingly, I thought I was taking a bill around to eliminate the estate tax and inheritance tax. And you'd think that's like a hallmark of Republican legislation. We got about almost the majority of Democrats signing on to that bill.
Wow.
So I have a list of
That's
names
a chance
here.
of
but-
success then, yeah?
Well, its hearing schedule is another story, so that one's pretty much dead as far as the
Okay.
hearings have gone. But I just thought it was pretty amazing that we got about 12 Democrats signing on to a bill to eliminate inheritance tax. Isn't that
I
very
would not
surprising?
expect that at all.
No. Yeah, so just in general, we've been doing very well with that. So it's, perhaps a sign of how things are turning around, that people are more willing to listen to the other side, and our office is certainly willing to listen to the Democrats.
There's many ways,
we have to.
to improve government. Nobody has a lock on that.
Yeah.
So what about some of these bills that we've seen bouncing around? Ivory?
Oh, so ivory legislation,
What
there
does
are a
that
few
provide?
different versions of it. They say that ivory items that are grandfathered in would be taken care of, that you wouldn't have to get rid of your ivory. I personally have a piano in my possession that's a 1948 Steinway piano that has the original ivory keys. So, if I were ever to lose the documentation for that piano, it's basically worthless because you need the
couldn't sell it.
documentation to say this existed before this bill was enacted. And Senator Slom's position on ivory is he's all for saving animals, saving elephants and whales and walruses and anything like that, but he's for prospective bans. And so the burden of proof would be on the person prosecuting, as opposed to, to
Okay.
show.
Well, that sounds reasonable
Yeah,
to
and
me.
it seems like it's something that could easily be implemented.
Yes,
So.
yes. Okay, what about feral cats?
Feral cats. So right now we have the trap, neuter, release program, which is a great way of regulating, the spread of feral cats, because it's the well-fed cats that are reproducing. So if you feed the cats that are well-fed, then they're going to squeeze if you feed the cats that are neutered, then they're going to be trying to reproduce, and they're going to be squeezing the other cats out of the gene pool. And those are the ones who are going to have babies. Whereas, if you eliminate that incentive to neuter the cats, then, people are still going to feed cats. It's not like, you're going to have a policeman finding grandma in her backyard feeding the cat, or actually this is on state land, but, grandma in the park feeding the cats.
Oh,
No
that's
one's going
right.
to be
It's
getting
only
them.
on state land anyway.
Yeah, so basically it's just eliminating the incentive for the trap, neuter, release program. So it's basically encouraging the spread of feral cats. And we've gotten a lot of testimony from cat lovers and from environmentalists who say the cats are, eating the endangered species, the honu eggs. And my response to that is that hungry cats are going to eat more honu eggs. So I don't know. That's an interesting bill. Another one that that kind of hits at the intersection of my two committees, higher education and tourism, came through last week about transferring $3 million from the Hawaii Tourism Authority to sports travel at the University of Hawaii, and it passed. So it's waiting for another hearing right now. It passed through its joint committee hearing between tourism and higher ed. And, we got testimony from both sides. From the HGEA, interestingly, there was some dispute over what the HGEA would cut if it had to cut $3 million. Some legislators were worried they were going to cut cultural programs and put those those words into the mouths essentially, and the HTA was saying, wait, no, we're not necessarily going to cut that, but what's most expendable as far as the visitor numbers come in, that could be a problem. So, where do we take the $3 million off to give to the athletes to travel around to, be ambassadors of Aloha was the idea. So the idea is that UH athletes are going to help tourism by advertising Hawaii as ambassadors of Aloha in Florida or Vegas or Mexico or wherever they're going for their...
Senator Sam Slom's position?
He voted with reservations on that, and it's hard for me to explain that because my personal opinion is so different from his on that bill that I'd hate to venture why he didn't vote no, but he saw some problems with the bill.
It's interesting.
But
And
he's also a
so
supporter
often
of
you see
sports.
the legislature moving money from one agency to another, and you say, why don't they just give $3 million for the sports travel? Why do they have to take it out of anybody else's hide?
That's true, but where does the money come from?
That's true. Then you're talking about, increasing the taxes. So on the taxes, what's the story about the 6% gross excise tax?
That's interesting. So the general excise tax right now it's actually a raise from 4 to 5% of total economic activities that get taxed under general excise. So essentially it's a 25% increase in the general excise tax from 4% to about 5%. And that was to fund HSTA, the Hawaii, to additionally fund teacher pay raises from HSTA. And the teachers have already been getting increased benefits. And I know, I really value the importance of teaching, and I'm a tutor myself, and I've been teaching since I was about 13 years old or younger. And, so it's hard to, nobody's saying that teachers don't matter, but, many states have put merit-based systems and standardized test-based systems, evaluation-based systems in there. So, again, the question's the money's coming from somewhere, who's going to pay for it? I think it's hard to say that a teacher is not more valuable than a football coach or than a professional, athlete or any
So how do we fix these
high-paid
priorities?
actor.
This sounds like one of those expert things where you have to put everybody in the room, throw away the keys, and make all the experts work it out in terms of what you call it economic impact.
Yeah.
You can't do a piecemeal one, ad hoc here and ad hoc there. That doesn't work well.
Yeah. And as far as the GET increase for HSTA, Representative Gene Ward also did a survey on that of Hawaii Kai residents and found that 73% of Hawaii Kai residents oppose that increased GET tax for the HSTA. We also have a payroll tax increase proposed, a 0.5% payroll tax to go to long-term care. And 79% of residents have opposed that. So it would be a 0.5% withholding tax. And both of those bills were killed yesterday, surprisingly. We were expecting them to pass, but they were killed. So there is an impact. We've gotten many constituents writing in yesterday saying don't raise the taxes, don't raise the GET. And their voice made an impact that wasn't necessarily predicted. So anyone who's thinking about writing in, testifying, don't hesitate.
Yeah. So Senator Slom, what's his position on these tax increases?
Oh, he's been anti-tax
Anti-tax
increase. He
increase.
was a small businessman long before he was a senator, so he's probably the most reliable legislator against tax increases, I'd say.
But there you go with that 5.4 increase, and it's just for, senior care? You say, wait a minute.
0.5%, yeah.
Wait a minute, why just that much?
Yeah, exactly.
Why not more? We threw it on the wall, we came out with that number. Why is that number the magic number? Is that going to solve the problem?
Exactly, it's like the minimum wage. Why pay them $15? That still makes life hard. Why not pay them $50? It's all these numbers are somewhat arbitrary.
Yeah.
And then the economy corrects itself because there are limited resources and money exists to allocate them among us,
Right. And why not, again, put the experts in a room and let them work out the economic impact on all this?
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose you could say, well, how about letting the departments come in on this and make decisions? I was always amazed to find that the legislature, not only in Hawaii but elsewhere, get down and micromanage things. And they are, by definition, political, not expert.
Yeah.
And so you really wonder what happened to the departments? Are they not doing their work?
Yeah.
Why aren't they making reports and why aren't they deciding and
Yeah.
saying, this is our turf, leave us alone,
Well,
we'll do it.
the legislature often becomes the mediator. I mean, there's the UH Cancer Center issue, and you have these expert researchers who are making, millions and millions of dollars for the state with the Cancer Center before 2008 and its administrative change. And now, because both the UH Med School and the Cancer Center are in trouble, the UH Med School and parts of the administration want to merge the two. The regents are kind of disagreeing with the president, and the president of the med school and the researchers at the Cancer Center are really clashing heads right now. And so they're looking at the legislature almost, like a teacher in an elementary school trying to break up two kids who are in a fight,
Yeah,
And
interesting. So become, as you say, a mediator. Hawaii, the state that says maybe.
yeah.
Maybe this, maybe that.
Yeah.
Never get together. I mean, so we've been covering the issue.
We're
for
the
example-
Aloha state.
Right, well, used to be. We've been covering this issue on LNG, liquefied natural gas, and the conversation goes on and on and on. Where's there going to be a decision? We need leadership, somewhere.
Yeah.
Somebody makes a decision and stands by it. Okay, what about vaccination?
Vaccinations, mandatory forced vaccinations have been a huge issue, and there's a whole slew of about a half dozen bills at least trying to mandate vaccinations for kids. There was one trying to mandate a HPV vaccination for 7th graders in public schools before they can start the school year. There's one mandating a flu vaccination for healthcare workers, if they're any healthcare worker, and that's a very broad category. Those were probably the two most that got the most publicity, but there are many vaccination bills, and Senator Slom strongly against forced vaccines because if you have to force people to do something, then it's a sign that the education system's failed. So,
Interesting.
yeah, some vaccines work, some don't. I just finished taking a biochemistry class, and you learn about antibodies and how specific each immune system is for different antibodies. And I mean, the vaccines might work for most of us. Basically, you're flooding the system with a mild disease in hopes that we build up our immunities to kill off the real thing when it comes. And sometimes some immune systems just aren't profiled for that, aren't ready to take it. And the problem with these forced vaccines is that they allow two exemptions, one being a religious exemption, which is another bill is actually aiming to eliminate the religious exemption, and I don't think it should be a religious issue. I think it should be a biological issue, and one
Or
being
a
a
social
medical
issue.
Yeah, one being a medical exemption. The problem is that many doctors refuse to write those exemption notes because they don't want to get involved in political issues. I was talking to a mom who had one kid who had a reaction to vaccines and two kids who hadn't, but they're younger and they have that genetic possibility. And the doctor refused to write them a note because he didn't want any involvement with the legislature. So, those exemptions might fall through, and Senator Slom believes that at the end of the day, it's the parents' right to be able to choose whether their kids get, vaccinated or not.
Okay. Elise, you're fabulous. And I disagree with one thing you said,
What's that?
that young people should not run for office. You should run for office. Yay!
I'll run from office.
That's Elise Anderson. She's Senior Legislative Aide to Senator Sam Slom, taking his place today, the Lone Ranger since Tonto. Thank you
Tonto.
very much, Elise.
Thank you.
Aloha.